shattered and shaken. But the American story has had moments like this before. And he was there, answering the call.
When we came into office in 2009, we were going through what was then the worst financial and economic crisis since the Great Depression.
The economy was hemorrhaging hundreds of thousands of jobs a week. People were losing their homes to foreclosure. The financial system was in tatters. Auto sales had dropped to near zero levels.
The auto companies faced bankruptcy, and many said, let them fail. But Joe remembered his father and what it meant to lose a job. The Finnegans and Bidens were Irish Catholic. Joe was their first. And then his sister Valerie.
From the moment I opened my eyes, my big brother was there. The thing that was most important was family and family and family.
As the post-war boom faded, Joe's father struggled to find work in Scranton. But 140 miles south, there was a job cleaning boilers in Wilmington.
There was a long stairway up to the second floor. Dad went up to Joey in our bedroom and saying, Joey, you gotta be a big boy.
For the first time, Joe saw the heavy burden on a father, and it was a lesson he would never forget.
A job is a lot more than a paycheck. It's about dignity.
The country was losing tens of thousands of jobs a day, and they needed 3 votes to pass the economic rescue package.
Joe Biden was handled the task of going to get those 3 Republican votes.
Joe returned to the place where he had been so effective.
Passionate argument, sympathetic listening, a willingness to make adjustments and accommodations to bring people on board.
When the law finally passed, the president tapped his partner to run the program. Joe tracked every dollar, calling mayors and governors.
Talking to them on the phone, one-on-one. He gave all of them his cell phone.
And I watched him bring his heart to that job. It matters that you have in your mind the family that you're trying to reach, the neighborhood that you're trying to reach, the people whose lives are affected by what you do.
The skills that had made him so effective had not come easy. When he entered school, there was a problem. Joe had a stutter.
And it's mortifying. It allows that child to become an object of ridicule.
When his teacher mimicked him and Joe ran home from school, his mother drove him back.
Did you say to my son, Mr. Biden? The nun said, I was just trying to make a point. My mother stood up, all 5'2" of her. If you ever talk to my son like that again, I'll come back and rip that damn bonnet off your head. Do you understand me? Joey, go back to class.
Joe resolved to overcome his stutter.
Some letters are harder than others. And I used to get up at night and go stand in front of the mirror with a flashlight and practice. She'd make me look her in the eye. Look at me. Remember, Joey, you're the smartest boy in that class. Nobody's better than you, Joey. From having to deal with stuttering, it gave me insight into other people's pain, other people's suffering.
At 19, Joe sought out a summer job that few of his peers considered taking.
He was a lifeguard along with the black lifeguards. That's when I first seen Joe, and we became friends.
It was one of the best things I've ever done because it gave me a sense that we really didn't know one another.
After Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, riots broke out in Wilmington, and the National Guard stayed for almost a year.
I quit the law firm and asked for a job to become a public defender. That's what sort of got me involved in politics.
J. Caleb Boggs was a popular war hero in a solidly Republican state. and few took Joe's campaign seriously.
In Delaware, the Democratic Party was non-functional. When it got time to put up a candidate, they didn't want to touch it. This young upstart, Joe Biden, who had a lot of ideas and no money, no influence, the party said, okay, well then go ahead, Biden, give it a whirl.
That's all I can ask. Look, if you like it, continue, help me out. If not, vote for the other fellow. Look, the other is good.
You know, we'd have a coffee, and we'd come out of that, we'd have 5 more coffees. He was very articulate on the issues. He brought people to say, not just that, well, I agree with what you're doing, is, you know, what can I do to help?
Delaware is the first state. J. Caleb Boggs, who is the incumbent Republican, being challenged by Joseph Biden. Biden is a Democrat who is 29 years of age.
But exhilaration soon turned to tragedy.
I mean, it was clear he had decided that I'm not going to be a senator, that the boys need me too much.
I was prepared to walk away in 1973. But men like Ted Kennedy and Mike Mansfield and Hubert Humphrey, Fritz Hollings, Danny Nolan, they convinced me to stay. Just stay 6 months, Joe. Remember, Danny? Just stay 6 months.
He couldn't allow the suffering to debilitate him. Just like he couldn't allow the stuttering to define him. That's the backbone. There's something bigger than Joe's suffering.
The Senate turned out to be a wonderful place for him. He had a real gift for bringing people together.
The three of them had a bond that was forged in sorrow and expanded into joy when Jill entered.
They had built this beautiful family, this circle of trust.
And then the extra gift of Ashley.
Growing up, it was full of adventure, laughter.
We do everything as a family, and we've always done everything as a family.
He was always a good, loving father. I mean, there's nothing more important to Joe than his children.
It's hard to explain how ever-present he was in our lives. You don't have to guess what my dad believes. A great benefit of being my father is that he doesn't have to contort himself into different people at different times.
Bo was going to do fine things. I mean, he had it all. And then he got sick. The whole world tilted. And it felt like we were all falling off.
Once again, Joe faced the unimaginable.
My mother, she said, bravery resides in every heart, and someday it will be summoned.
The way he survived losing my mom and my sister, and then losing my brother, is understanding that you have to have purpose.
Every day I get up, I ask myself, I hope he's proud of me, because that's the thing that makes me move on.
From his time in the Senate and then the White House, Joe always found a way forward, forging unlikely friendships and alliances. And time after time, he made progress possible, and always holding in his heart the struggles of his family and every family, always fighting to make his country whole.
It's a very rare quality to bring your empathy skills to the process of governing. Joe Biden never forgets that that's the point of moving the wheels of government.
He will keep his word. He will reach out and hear what other people have to say.
To have somebody who believes in what's best in us, somebody like Joe Biden who actually believes in the American idea, that's the kind of person who I want in the White House.
Good evening. Ella Baker, a giant of the civil rights movement, left us with this wisdom. Give people light. and they will find the way. Give people light. Those are words for our time. The current president has cloaked American darkness for much too long. Too much anger, too much fear, too much division. Here and now, I give you my word. If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. I'll be an ally of the light, not the darkness. It's time for us, for we the people, to come together. And make no mistake, united we can and will overcome this season of darkness in America. We'll choose hope over fear, facts over fiction, fairness over privilege. I'm a proud Democrat, and I'll be proud to carry the banner of our party into the general election. So it's with great honor and humility I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America. But while I'll be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president. I'll work hard for those who didn't support me, as hard for them as I did for those who did vote for me. That's the job of a president, to represent all of us, not just our base or our party. This is not a partisan moment. This must be an American moment. It's a moment that calls for hope and light and love, hope for our future, light to see our way forward, and love for one another. America isn't just a collection of clashing interests of red states or blue states. We're so much bigger than that. We're so much better than that. You know, nearly a century ago, Franklin Roosevelt pledged a New Deal in a time of massive unemployment, uncertainty, and fear. Stricken by a disease, stricken by a virus, FDR insisted that he would recover and prevail, and he believed America could as well. And he did, and we can as well. This campaign isn't just about winning votes. It's about winning the heart and, yes, the soul of America. Winning it for the generous among us, not the selfish. Winning it for workers who keep this country going, not just the privileged few at the top. Winning it for those communities who have known the injustice of a knee on the neck. For all the young people who have known only America being rising inequity and shrinking opportunity, they deserve the experience of America's promise. They deserve to experience it in full. You know, no generation ever knows what history will ask of it. All we can ever know is whether we're ready when that moment arrives. And now history has delivered us to one of the most difficult moments America's ever faced. Four historic crises, all at the same time. A perfect storm. The worst pandemic in over 100 years. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The most compelling call for racial justice since the 60s. And the undeniable realities and just the accelerating threats of climate change. So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be. You know, all elections are important. We know in our bones this one is more consequential. As many have said, America is at an inflection point. A time of real peril, but also of extraordinary possibilities. We can choose a path of becoming angrier, less hopeful, more divided, a path of shadow and suspicion, or we can choose a different path and together take this chance to heal, to reform, to unite, a path of hope and light. This is a life-changing election. This will determine what America is going to look like for a long, long time. Character is on the ballot. Compassion is on the ballot. Decency, science, democracy, they're all on the ballot. Who we are as a nation, what we stand for, most importantly, who we want to be, that's all on the ballot. And the choice could not be more clear. No rhetoric is needed. Just judge this president on the facts. 5 million Americans infected by COVID-19. more than 170,000 Americans have died. By far the worst performance of any nation on earth. More than 50 million people have filed for unemployment this year. More than 10 million people are going to lose their health insurance this year. Nearly 1 in 6 small businesses have closed this year. And this president, if he's reelected, you know what will happen. Cases and deaths will remain far too high. More mom and pop businesses will close their doors, and this time for good. Working families will struggle to get by. And yet the wealthiest 1% will get tens of billions of dollars in new tax breaks. And the assault on the Affordable Care Act will continue until it's destroyed, taking insurance away from more than 20 million people, including more than 15 million people on Medicaid, and getting rid of the protections that President Obama worked so hard to get passed for people who have 100 million more people who have pre-existing conditions. And speaking of President Obama, a man I was honored to serve alongside for 8 years as vice president, let me take this moment to say something we don't say nearly enough. Thank you, Mr. President. You were a great president. A president our children could and did look up to. No one's going to say that about the current occupant of the White House. What we know about this president is if he's given 4 more years, he'll be what he's been for the last 4 years. President takes no responsibility, refuses to lead, blames others, cozies up to dictators, and fans the flames of hate and division. He'll wake up every day believing the job is all about him, never about you. Is that the American you want? For you, your family, your children? I see a different American. One that's generous and strong, selfless and humble. It's an America we can rebuild together. As president, the first step I will take will be to get control of the virus that has ruined so many lives. Because I understand something this president hasn't from the beginning. We will never get our economy back on track. We will never get our kids safely back in schools. We'll never have our lives back until we deal with this virus. The tragedy of where we are today is it didn't have to be this bad. Just look around. It's not this bad in Canada or Europe or Japan or almost anywhere else in the world. And the president keeps telling us the virus is going to disappear. He keeps waiting for a miracle. Well, I have news for him. No miracle is coming. We lead the world in confirmed cases. We lead the world in deaths. Our economy is in tatters with Black, Latino, Asian American, Native American communities bearing the brunt of it. And after all this time, the president still does not have a plan. Well, I do. If I'm your president, on day 1, we'll implement the national strategy I've been laying out since March. We'll develop and deploy rapid tests with results available immediately. We'll make the medical supplies and protective equipment that our country needs. We'll make them here in America, so we will never again be at the mercy of China or other foreign countries in order to protect our own people. We'll make sure our schools have the resources they need to be open, safe, and effective. We'll put politics aside. We'll take the muzzle off our experts so the public gets the information they need and deserve. Honest, unvarnished truth. They can handle it. We'll have a national mandate to wear masks, not as a burden, but as a patriotic duty to protect one another. In short, we'll do what we should have done from the very beginning. Our current president has failed in his most basic duty to the nation. He's failed to protect us. He's failed to protect America. And my fellow Americans, that is unforgivable. As president, I'll make you a promise. I'll protect America. I will defend us from every attack, seen and unseen, always, without exception, every time. Look, I understand. I understand how hard it is to have any hope right now. On this summer night, let me take a moment to speak to those of you who have lost the most. I have some idea how it feels to lose someone you love. I know that deep black hole that opens up in the middle of your chest and you feel like you're being sucked into it. I know how mean, cruel, and unfair life can be sometimes. But I've learned two things. First, your loved one may have left this earth, but they'll never leave your heart. They'll always be with you. You'll always hear them. And second, I found the best way through pain and loss and grief is to find purpose. As God's children, each of us have a purpose in our lives. We have a great purpose as a nation to open the doors of opportunity to all Americans, to save our democracy, to be a light to the world once again, and finally to live up to and make real the words written in the sacred documents that founded this nation, that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, my dad was an honorable, decent man. He got knocked down a few times pretty hard, but he always got back up. He worked hard, and he built a great middle-class life for our family. He used to say, Joey, I don't expect the government to solve my problems, but I sure in hell expect them to understand them. And then he'd say, Joey, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. I've never forgotten those lessons. That's why my economic plan is all about jobs, dignity, respect, and community. Together we can and will rebuild our economy. And when we do, we'll not only build back, we'll build back better. With modern roads, bridges, highways, broadband, ports and airports as a new foundation for economic growth. With pipes that transport clean water to every community. With 5 million new manufacturing and technology jobs, so the future is made in America. With a healthcare system that lowers premiums, deductibles, drug prices, by building on the Affordable Care Act he's trying to rip away. With an education system that trains our people for the best jobs of the 21st century. There's not a single thing American workers can't do. And where cost doesn't prevent young people from going to college and student debt doesn't crush them when they get out. With a child care and elder care system that makes it possible for parents to go to work and for the elderly to stay in their homes with dignity. With an immigration system that powers our economy and reflects our values. And with newly empowered labor unions. They're the ones that built the middle class. With equal pay for women, with rising wages you could raise a child on, a family on. And yes, we're going to do more than praise our essential workers. We're finally going to pay them. Pay them. We can and we will deal with climate change. It's not only a crisis, it's an enormous opportunity. An opportunity for America to lead the world in clean energy and create millions of new, good-paying jobs in the process. And we can pay for these investments by ending loopholes, unnecessary loopholes, and the president's $1.3 trillion tax giveaway to the wealthiest 1% and the biggest, most profitable corporations, some of which do not pay any tax at all. Because we don't need a tax code that rewards wealth more than it rewards work. I'm not looking to punish anyone. Far from it. But it's long past time the wealthiest people and the biggest corporations in this country paid their fair share. And for our seniors, Social Security is a sacred obligation, a sacred promise made. They paid for. The current president is threatening to break that promise. He's proposing to eliminate a tax that pays for almost half the Social Security without any way of making up for that lost revenue, resulting in cuts. I will not let that happen. If I'm your president, we're going to protect Social Security and Medicare. You have my word. One of the most powerful voices we hear in the country today is from our young people. They're speaking to the inequity and injustice that has grown up in America. Economic injustice, racial injustice, environmental injustice. I hear their voices. If you listen, you can hear them too. And whether it's the existential threat posed by climate change, the daily fear of being gunned down in school, or the inability to get started in your first job, it will be the work of the next president to restore the promise of America to everyone. And I'm not going to have to do it alone, because I'll have a great vice president at my side, Senator Kamala Harris. She's a powerful voice for this nation. Her story is the American story. She knows about all the obstacles thrown in the way of so many in our country. Women, black Americans, South Asian Americans, immigrants, the left out and the left behind. But she's overcome every obstacle she's ever faced. No one's been tougher on the big banks and the gun lobby. No one's been tougher in calling out the current administration for its extremism, its failure to follow the law, its failure to simply tell the truth. Kamala and I both draw from our families. That's where we get our strength. For Kamala, it's Doug and their families. For me, it's Jill and ours. I've said many times, no man deserves one great love in his life, let alone two. But I've known two. After losing my first wife in that car accident, Jill came into my life. She put our family back together. She's an educator, a mom, a military mom, and an unstoppable force. If she puts her mind to it, just get out of the way. She's going to get it done. She was a great second lady, and I know she'll make a great first lady for this nation. She loves this country so much. And I'll always have the strength that can only come from family. Hunter, Ashley, all our grandchildren, my brothers, my sister, they give me courage. They lift me up. Wally's no longer with us. Bo inspires me every day. Bo served our nation in uniform. A year in Iraq, a decorated Iraqi war veteran. So I take very personally and the profound responsibility of serving as Commander-in-Chief. I'll be a president who will stand with our allies and friends and make it clear to our adversaries the days of cozying up to dictators is over. Under President Biden, America will not turn a blind eye to Russian bounties on the heads of American soldiers. Amen. Nor will I put up with foreign interference in our most sacred democratic exercise, voting. And I'll always stand for our values of human rights and dignity. I'll work in common purpose for a more secure, peaceful, and prosperous world. History has thrust one more urgent task on us. Will we be the generation that finally wipes out the stain of racism from our national character? I believe we're up to it. I believe we're ready. Just a week ago yesterday was the 3rd anniversary of the events in Charlottesville. Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists coming out of fields with lighted torches, veins bulging, spewing the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. Remember the violent clash that ensued between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. And remember what the president said when asked? He said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides. It was a wake-up call for us as a country, and for me, a call to action. At that moment, I knew I'd have to run, because my father taught us that silence was complicity, and I could never remain silent or complicit. At the time, I said we're in the battle for the soul of this nation, and we are. You know, one of the most important conversations I've had this entire campaign, it was with someone who was much too young to vote. I met with 6-year-old Gianna Floyd the day before her daddy, George Floyd, was laid to rest. She's an incredibly brave little girl. And I'll never forget it. When I leaned down to speak to her, she looked in my eyes and she said, and I quote, "Daddy changed the world. Daddy changed the world." Her words burrowed deep into my heart. Maybe George Floyd murder was a breaking point. Maybe John Lewis is passing the inspiration. But however it's come to be, however it's happened, America's ready, in John's words, to lay down, quote, "the heavy burden of hate at last," and to end the hard work of rooting out our systemic racism. You know, American history tells us that it's been in our darkest moments that we've made our greatest progress, that we found the light. In this dark moment, I believe we're poised to make great progress again, that we can find the light once more. You know, many people have heard me say this, but I've always believed you can define America in one word: possibilities. The defining feature of America: everything is possible. That in America, everyone, and I mean everyone, should be given an opportunity to go as far as their dreams and God-given ability will take them. We can never lose that. In times as challenging as these, I believe there's only one way forward. As a united America, a united America, united in our pursuit of a more perfect union, united in our dreams of a better future for us and for our children, united in our determination to make the coming years bright. Are you ready? I believe we are. This is a great nation. We're a good and decent people. For the Lord's sake, this is the United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been able to accomplish when we've done it together. The Irish poet Seamus Heaney once wrote, "History says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme." This is our moment to make hope and history rhyme. With passion and purpose, let us begin, you and I together, one nation, under God, united in our love for America, united in our love for each other. For love is more powerful than hate, hope is more powerful than fear, and light is more powerful than dark. This is our moment, this is our mission. May history be able to say that the end of this chapter of American darkness began here tonight, as love and hope and light join in the battle for the soul of the nation. And this is a battle we will win, and we'll do it together. I promise you. Thank you, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Good night.
Even given the surreal, electronic, distant environment of a pandemic, Joe Biden needed to stick the landing, and I imagine that most reviews, with perhaps one notable exception, will agree that he did. After a half century in politics, Joe Biden now gets, albeit electronically, to claim his prize. His party's nomination. He now goes on to lead the way. The Democratic National Convention is now history. Joe Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris will have the final 10 weeks of this campaign to make their case to voters and keep the pressure on Donald Trump. In the midst of this pandemic, that is the central issue in this campaign, make no mistake. The pandemic that has left hearts heavy across our country in this summer of the year 2020. What we're about to see now are fireworks displays in various cities, starting with the Biden family and the Harrises out back behind the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. Again, not the party the Democrats expected in Milwaukee, but this is not the year anyone in this country expected. No one foresaw the need to wash groceries when we entered the house. It's all on brand and in keeping with 2020. So we'll live in this, we'll watch this, and it's a great time, having just seen what we've seen, to bring in our friends Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Joy Reid. They remain in our New York studios. Rachel, your thoughts on Joe Biden's speech these past 4 nights and this final night as a whole, as we walk them out the door?
I gotta say, I'm loving watching these visuals too, Brian. Thank you for explaining what it is that we are looking at here. We've been seeing some kind of like drive-in, basically. This is drive-in big screen viewers watching in Wilmington. I think that's happened in a few places around the country. That itself is kind of cool. Now we're going to see them walk out of the venue and see fireworks. I have seen a lot of Joe Biden speeches in my life. He was elected to the Senate the year I was born. And he's been in national politics for a good chunk of my life in this part of his business. I've never seen a Joe Biden speech anywhere near as good as that. And if the Trump campaign is going to try to market a caricature of Joe Biden as a man who can't speak and can't string a sentence together, they're going to have to do it against sort of up a very steep hill created by the number of Americans who just saw that speech. It was beautifully done. And I will tell you that the thing that was very moving to me and that I felt like I finally exhaled after I heard it was when he addressed the 174,000 plus American families who've had a family member killed by COVID. Nobody's been talking to them about, it's not just 174,000 lives lost, it's 174,000 families. And for him to turn to that, it was great. I liked it.
Brian, I think that he changed the dynamics of this race. I mean, when he said, well, I will be a Democratic candidate, I will be an American president, he now is the challenger to an incumbent, is running as the guy on the side of the whole country. And it cheapens, it deprives Donald Trump of his shtick. His thing is my people, my generals, my people. Brian, I think that he changed.
We're going to stop right there whenever they're engaging in these final episodes pertaining to their firework display. And I want to share a few words with my viewers this afternoon as they're winding this up towards giving my input of that in which what I feel and that in which what God has inspired for me to say to the people that love and endure and put forth a little bit of interest in the things that the founder of the Windmill Ministries has been a part of for the past 30 years. I want to show you something real quick pertaining to marble medicine, pertaining to people that has to take insulin shots. This is my insulin shot container. that's got Novolog 7030 in it that I have to do twice a day. I have to take this out and insert this needle that you see right there into my stomach approximately an hour before I eat. Twice a day, every day for the rest of my life, unless a divine miracle happens to me. That miracle I prayed for today as leaving a rock foyer over in Hickman, Kentucky, where I had purchased some more rock to go in the 75th anniversary memorial site out here. I went by these people's house that had a little sign that said garage sale. Even though I looked and I didn't see nothing appealing, I went ahead and listened to that inner voice within my head that said, Dennis, I want you to stop. They got something that I want you to purchase there. And I said, well, God, what in the world is it? They have an exercise equipment in there that I want you to purchase. So I stopped, turned around, come back around, went into there. And once more, whenever I looked into the garage, I see no exercise equipment. And I'm thinking to myself, God, are you sure these people's got exercise equipment here? Because all they had was a little sign that said garage sale. So I rolled down the window and I asked the lady, I said, ma'am, what I'm looking for is some exercise equipment. Do you possibly have some exercise equipment that you're selling at this garage sale? She said, absolutely, I sure do. So I thought, well, God, I need to apologize to you. These people does have something. Her original price for a used North Track E6.3 North Track tracking device, where you get on it and you go up and down, and you intensify it by that. And of course, you got buttons to where you plug it up and you engage more pressure on the wheel. It was $150, and I said, ma'am, I can't give that because I don't have that on me right now. I said, I'll give you $100 for it. She thought for a second. She come back out with her daughter. She said, we'll help you load it up. So I purchased this, and the point that I'm trying to make is this. After a potential presidential speech, Mr. Biden said something in regard that there is not going to be a miracle in regards to the coronavirus. Sure, it will be. Miracles exist every day in all of our lives, depending upon how God favors in our life. And if God favors in my life, pertaining to me getting back exercise, getting back going again, getting motivated not only mentally but spiritually as well as physically, to the point that I lose some of my weight and I can regain control over my life pertaining to my pancreas not producing what it should towards taking out the sugar in my bloodstream, to the point that I no longer have to take this $125 shot, this container that lasts approximately a week for the rest of my life. If it's meant for the blessings to fall upon my life in that degree, and if I ask hard enough and long enough, and if I have the faith in believing that, I believe that God can and will change my life. We are at the crossroads here in America, to the point that I believe that this has fallen upon to society, not just here in America, but throughout the world, towards waking up the world in regards to the coronavirus, COVID-19. It talks about that in the first 4 chapters of Revelations, for he has not yet found our works perfect yet, pertaining to not just a perfect union, pertaining to how we perceive and how we work and how we intertwine with each other and how we live but how we glorify God and how we worship. The Bible goes on to talk about those who are lukewarm, that he will spew thee out of thy mouth, that he rather us either be hot or cold, but that he's looking for that perfect church, that bride, to where whenever the bridegroom comes back, he will be able to receive us wholly the way that he intended for us to be received. I've only voted twice in my entire life, and both of those times has been on the Democrat ticket. I'm sorry, and I want to apologize to the party. I will not be voting this year. I will be stepping this one out for various reasons. But this is my contribution to the party as well as to society towards putting out my YouTube videos and telling people how I feel about this particular president. Though I'm a spiritual man, and though I look at spiritual resolutions, I also have to be logical in understanding that from a practical standpoint, I got to look at a little bit of political stuff too as well. Mr. Biden and his story has moved my heart, especially in these times of trouble that we're in right now, this time of darkness that has fallen upon to America. I truly believe that through the will of Mr. Biden's administration, though it's not going to be easy, we as a society can in fact turn this around through love, endurance, through listening to the professionals pertaining to spiritual leaders, science, doctors, etc., that we can have that unity that it talks about in the Bible towards a peace and prosperity that will fall upon humanity before the opening of that second seal. Something that I've been preaching now for quite some time that I couldn't gain supporters in. I don't know if the people thought that I was bluffing. I don't know if the people thought that I was trying to bamboozle them. But now we are where we at today. And there's literally nothing that we can do about it other than grin and bear it and start to figure out a way out of this horrendous ditch or gorge that we're in to be able to come back out into the light. I truly believe the things that Mr. Biden talked about tonight pertaining to light being greater than darkness. That good will exceed and excel over evil. It has and it always will, again and again and again, if we will only believe. Just this past week, I went down and spoke to my son, Nicholas. And the first part of our conversation was fairly lengthy and enlightening, but the latter part of it got a bit rough. I pray for these millennial type children that are growing up today that doesn't have the experiences and doesn't have the wisdom as we have today. I pray for them that they will have the grit to be able to look the challenges of society face to face and understanding that the values exceed the failures. We must fight for the things that we know that are right. We must fight for our children, though we may not disagree or agree with them all the time. We still know that they are our children, such as God looks at us. Even though we mess up, God still sees us as His children. We may be a messed up group of children, but we're still His children. Just like my child, my boy down in Memphis. The things that we discussed at the latter part of our conversation, I found to be a bit upsetting. But he's still my son. I still love him. He's still part of my family. He still goes back to our original DNA. The same way with your family. The same way with your mother and father. The same way with your brother and sister. The same way with your child. We have to put aside our differences and understanding that this fight that we're in isn't just about us, but it's about all of us. We have to fight. Fight for the things that we know that are right according to the good book, according to the book of life. To fight for our communities and to fight for the party that we believe in. And tonight, I challenge my viewers in fighting for the Biden administration to become the next presidential candidate to help to guide us out of this great darkness, out of this great storm that we're in, that we're all in some form or fashion, to get us out of the darkness back into the light. Yes, it's come time for our prayer warriors to come forth. Yes, it's come time for our political warriors to come forth. Yes, it's come time for our combat warriors to come forth. It's come time to blow the trumpet in enacting into this culture, spiritual, social war, and understanding that yes, light is greater than darkness. As we end this particular episode on this program tonight, we just want to end it in understanding that our past ancestors has had similar type challenges that they have had to face too as well. And rather than them run from them, they accepted the challenge to them. Does it mean it's going to be easy? Not at all. But what it does mean is that there's hope that we can excel and exceed, and that we as a surviving society will come out on top. Especially if we'll put our priorities right in the eyes of our Creator and understand that for the betterment of the good, the big picture is much more valuable than just a little picture. I want to thank you for allowing from us, the Windmill Ministries here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, to be a part of your life in the 21st century. Because without y'all embracing us, praying for us, supporting us, we as a Christian ministry, to be able to minister to you in these last days, would not be as effective as we are if it weren't for you. So in ending, I want to put it right back onto the program, not taking away from what went on tonight. I just wanted to give my viewers a little bit of insight in how that the Windmill Ministry supports Mr. Biden and the Harrison ticket in running for election, and the best of luck to all of us as we end in every program in saying shalom.
It cheapens. It deprives Donald Trump of his shtick. His thing is my people, my generals, my people, my base, us against them. I think Joe Biden took that from him tonight, because Joe Biden said, I am running as a proud Democratic candidate. He I think, hit a lot of the right notes on policy. He spoke to this moment, all of our pain, all of our crises. But he said, I will govern for all of you. It doesn't matter from which corner you came from or who you voted for as president. I will lead all of you. I don't know that you've ever had a challenger take away the America piece from a president, but I believe Joe Biden did that tonight.
Well, he also, specifically because Trump can't rebut it. Right. Trump can't credibly
Trump
say.
doesn't believe it.
He doesn't.
Trump doesn't believe. I mean, here's the reason Trump can't rebut it. Trump doesn't believe it. Now, I believe Bill Stepien, his new campaign manager, or Chris Christie might call him and tell him he should. He won't because he doesn't believe that he's the president of all
of everyone. And at this point, he kind of believes he's the president of QAnon, and it's a problem, right? What Donald Trump has done is set up Joe Biden for this. I think we found out tonight why Donald Trump feared him so much. I just saw this night, I think the whole presentation of it, I think, was directed directly at white working class voters, which is what he's not supposed to be able to win. I think that Joe Biden, he learned a very smart lesson from South Carolina. There was a temptation for a moment that after South Carolina, Joe Biden would develop the theory that he is the candidate that can deliver black voters, because that's what happened in South Carolina. But he's clearly learned that he brought on a running mate who can expand his coalition and energize the Obama coalition, but that his superpower is who he is. He is a white working class voter. He is the thing that Donald Trump pretended to be in 2016, the regular Joe. He's literally called Joey throughout all of these videos by his family members. He's Joey. He's a guy you know. He is a white working class voter. And he came right for Donald Trump's base tonight. And he's not theoretically supposed to be able to win it. But I'm not so sure that he can't draw even a smidgen of it. He doesn't need a lot of it. He needs a small number of a percentage of firemen and, you know, guys who, as they say, shower after work instead of before work. He just needs a tiny percentage of those to flip side. And he is relentless in being determined that he can. Now, maybe he can't, right? There's a whole political science sort of argument that those voters are no longer available to any Democrat. But if there's one Democrat on earth that they're available to, they're available to the guy who says, I'm an American president. I wrote that down too, where he said something Obama said. We're not a collection of red states and blue states. We're one country. I'm going to govern for everyone. He talked about the dignity of work. A job is not just about work, it's about dignity. It's being able to look your kid in the face and say it's going to be okay. Well, that sounds a lot like a white working class voter motivating argument that will also work with college educated white voters who are sick and tired of the division and the anger. He literally laid out a case for why he can be an American president that anyone who's exhausted by the current situation can run to and feel comfortable and not be nervous about and not feel weird about. He is a regular Joe, and that's what he needed to be tonight, and I think he did an excellent job.
Brian, I'm sorry, he's also got us back in our cars, as you can see.
Yeah, I was just going to say to my friends there in the studio and our friends watching, and this is admittedly the intersection of politics and television. Please note, there's your handshake.
Yeah, there's the
handshake that. That's the ticket. We're both wearing masks, on brand for 2020. This is a parking lot in Wilmington, Delaware, but please note that throughout this crisis, sometimes with little thanks to our government, the public has figured out public health. The producers of this event had to go first. It's the Republicans who get last licks this year. So they had to figure all this out. They had to figure out Zoom. They had to figure out the roll call of states, and they have gone and figured out fireworks over a parking lot in Wilmington, Delaware, an outdoor stage, and a drive-up celebration with people at a distance in their cars, honking their horns. And I got to tell you, this works.
Yeah, this is, I mean, we're used to seeing balloons drop from nets in a ceiling. This is better.
Yeah, it's
this
charming.
This is better
it's
than
cool.
that. And getting them outside is, A, responsible, and B, this kind of feels like this.
Wow.
Way to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of show.
There's a lot about conventions I think that's going to change permanently after this year, right? I can't imagine going back inside some sort of stale arena. Like, this is the way to do it.
Also, we have to have Braden Harrington speak at every convention from here on out.
Yeah.
The 13-year-old kid from New Hampshire who spoke about his stutter and his interactions with Biden. I had to lay down on the floor with the saga. I mean, I kind of cried and everything. I had to physically accommodate the racking sobs in my body from listening and being so inspired by that kid, Braden. I mean, I know these things are programmed in a way that are meant to move us, but
But you know what? It also set up Biden for success because he also has a stutter.
Yeah.
And so as he was speaking, I'm kind of holding my breath for him because I know he also stutters.
Mm-hmm.
And after he got through the entire speech and he did it so well, you felt a pride in him being able to do it the way you felt for little Braden. And so I think having that little touch was
and
beautiful.
having it real close right before his speech
So
was
close to-
smart.
And Brian, I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump probably said more mean things on Twitter tonight than any Oppo research person could find Joe Biden to have said in his whole life. And I think that every person that was featured over the last 4 nights there were people Joe Biden ran into in the context of knowing he would be here tonight as his party's nominee. His life, the life he's lived, was on display this week. And when you're Joe Biden's age and you find yourself in this spot this night, you can't go back and airbrush anything.
Yeah.
What was revealed to the country is what it is. And it is diametrically opposed. It is on another freaking universe from what is on the menu in the other category. And again, I don't know what people will choose. I didn't think they would choose the last guy last time, but this presentation of this man who lost his wife and his daughter, and then later, when he had it all, lost his adult son, this is who he is. And we are a country right now that is racked with the pain of 171,000 worlds blown up. People that were alive 5 months ago, they're now gone because of this pandemic, and it did not have to be that way. We didn't have to be the country with 171,000 worlds blown up on Donald Trump's watch, but we are.
Yeah.
And when he said,
And whenever they talk about, in closing here, when they talk about losing a loved one or losing a friend, I, at the very front of this COVID, long about March, had lost a real dear, near friend in Nashville, Tennessee, by the name of Bobby Sue Throneberry, that I seen and heard her voice and her demeanor change from being normal to being abnormal to the point of no longer speaking just within a period of a couple weeks. I don't know what happened to her son at the time. Her son was going through some major stuff in the hospital up in Nashville. But this COVID-19 has touched home with a lot of people, either directly or indirectly. And if it hasn't, God bless you for it not affecting your life in a direct or indirect way. And there are still a lot of people that still thinks in some terminology that the COVID-19 is some sort of hoax. It was never a hoax. What made it appear like it was a hoax was the leadership that didn't take it serious on the front end, that led everybody else down the road of not accepting the fact that this is serious and we needed to take it serious. Just like a minister, an evangelist, a preacher, a rabbi, a priest that tells you that heaven and hell is serious, and how you live your life today makes all the difference in the world towards how you're going to spend eternity after you leave this world. These things should never be taken lightly in how that we present ourselves, either on a spiritual level or a medical level. Because whenever people are telling you the storm is coming, the storm is coming, we as a society need to realize that if the storm is coming, what can we do to properly protect ourselves from the oncoming doom And that's where Donald J. Trump failed the American people, is that he did not persuade his people by being the watchman on the wall, by being that in which what should have warned the rest of us to where we could have taken the COVID-19 in a more serious manner. And it wouldn't have mattered if it was COVID-19 or a meteor coming out of the sky or a massive approach by a forceful army. Whenever a leader loses his ability to persuade his people in what that they should properly prepare themselves for, then is whenever you no longer have a leader. And Donald Trump has lost his leadership towards the dignity that most leaders have with their own people. Even Ronald Reagan, that preached a similar message of light being stronger than darkness, let the world know that America was and still is and will always be that guiding light into the future, that 1,000 points of light that we must continue to strive towards in being better in every way imaginable. Just as the Bible talks to us that He has not yet found that perfect union. We have to strive towards that perfect union. We have to strive towards that perfectness in our own personal affairs, in how we are accepted by our own personal relationship with our own personal God, the God of the living, the God of this universe, the God of the Lord Jesus Christ. May we be blessed by our endeavors, by our Creator, and may God bless America in our future. And thanks for listening, and shalom.